A country's strength is derived from within. How its people are living will tell you how they are giving. A dignified living is crucial for productivity. The quality of life is important because it will reflect on the quality of the output. For years, challenges have been put on the shelf, or better yet, under the rug, to the point where one cannot walk on it due to the heaps of problems that have been shoved underneath. Some have come out to say that we should prioritize the issues to be tackled and the expenditures incurred. However, when one looks at the combined challenges, one realizes that they are all priorities affecting the lives of each and every one of us. A dignified life is what people look for, and through the ongoing initiatives taking place, the road is being paved and the light is appearing along the tunnel. Good evening. Welcome to the Business Insider. I'm Ayman Salah and you're watching Nile TV International. We'll be back. Welcome back. The first news item for the day is that the International Monetary Fund on Tuesday said it expects to provide an additional $1.6 billion in financing to Egypt after its executive board approves the funding in coming weeks. This comes after reaching an agreement with Egyptian authorities about the additional funding after a second and final review of the economic program and a $5.2 billion 12-month standby arrangement. According to the IMF, Egypt's economy has shown resilience, with the impact of the COVID-19 crisis mitigated by the authorities' swift and balanced policy response. The IMF is forecasting economic growth of 2.8% in fiscal year 2020-2021 and 5.2% in fiscal year 21-22, and added that Egypt met all its structural benchmarks, including steps to reform fiscal transparency and governance, social protection, and improve the business environment. It said Egypt's fiscal and monetary policies should continue to support the economic recovery and called for additional efforts on the country's economic reforms, highlighting the need to encourage exports by further reducing trade impediments and building a greener economy. And the second news item is that airport employees are getting vaccinated. This is part of the move to secure the tourism industry and its stakeholders. Vaccine rollout to airport workers officially began on Tuesday, with the Egyptian Airports Company lining up doses for its employees through the Health Ministry. The national flag carrier also started inoculating its staff members a few days earlier, starting with frontline employees who are most frequently exposed to passengers. The Health Ministry has said that it plans to have vaccinated all workers in the sector before the summer season begins. We'll be back.
تحية تقدير واحترام لبطل حقيقي. البطل ده هو مصر وشعبها. الحكاية مش حكاية لا حكومة ولا قيادة، ده حكاية كل مواطن في مصر. أكرمت مصر وشرفت مصر وعزيت مصر، انتم قتلتم. فالشرف كل الشرف والكرامة كل الكرامة والفضل كل الفضل لله سبحانه وتعالى، ثم ليكم انتم. شرفتوني واكرمتموني وعزتوني ورفعتوا راسي قدام الدنيا كلها باللي انتم عملتوه. والله 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 لن يستطيع اي رئيس يقف مكاني هنا انه يقدر يعمل حاجه بدونكم. لن يستطيع. قصة وطن يتحدث عن نفسه، شعب أراد الحياة فاستجاب له القدر. لازم نعترف إن 25 يناير و30/6 حجم الوعي السياسي والإحساس بالوطن ومخاطره مش تضاعف، بقى غير مسبوق. من 6 سنين قلت لكم إن إحنا هنبنيها مع بعض. إحنا هنفضل نشتغل ونبني ونعمر في بلدنا لآخر لحظة. خلونا نحط ايدينا في ايدين بعض. احنا لا نبغي إلا البناء والتنمية والسلام. تحيا مصر، تحيا مصر، تحيا مصر.
Welcome back. You're watching the Business Insider here on Nile TV International. Today's topic is the Decent Life Initiative. I prefer to call it the Dignified Life Initiative and its effect on comprehensive development. I have the pleasure to be joined by Dr. Zainab Nawar. She's an economics professor at the British University here in Egypt. A pleasure having you with us on the show here tonight. Let's watch this report and then start our discussion. We'll be back.
A Decent Life Initiative was launched in January 2019 to provide a better life for the most vulnerable groups nationwide and to enhance the quality of daily public services provided to citizens, especially in rural areas. It provides healthcare, medical services, surgeries and prosthetic devices and aims to develop Egypt's poorest villages according to the poverty map, providing job opportunities. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has been closely following up on the progress made in the initiative and has instructed the provision of all resources, equipment, machinery and manpower from all sectors to fulfill the project. The initiative includes the Egyptian Rural Villages Development Project, the largest of its kind in the world in terms of volume and diversity of business, as well as its magnitude of stakeholders, with over half of the population due to benefit from it. The goal of the project is to improve the development and social dimensions as well as the services offered to citizens through urgently intervening to develop all aspects of life and its quality. In total, 4,584 villages are targeted, with 58% of the total population. The estimated cost of the project is nearly $45 billion and involves large-scale government, public and private sector coordination. The services sector includes the construction of hospitals, health units, child and family services, along with medicine units, ambulance pickup points, medical convoys, educational and youth facilities. Modern unified government service complex sites will be built along with rebuilding or renovating the old facilities. Combined, the initiative has its economic toll, notwithstanding the micro and small enterprise financing in villages and the development of banking and lending services.
Welcome back. You're watching the Business Insider. I'm joined by Dr. Zainab Nawar, economics professor at the British University in Egypt. A pleasure once again to have you with us on the show. Let's start with the main pivot of the Dignified Life Initiative, or Decent Life Initiative as they call it.
Yes. I will tell you something. It's a personal experience for my work, my previous work in development. I see that Decent Life as an initiative, it's an excellent. It's one of the biggest projects that will be presented to the Egyptians that are living in rural, and especially when we talk about rural and poor areas in Egypt. When we used to go to poorer areas and poor areas in Egypt, we used to see the huge leakage in the infrastructure and a huge leakage in the type of services provided in the poor areas and poor villages of Egypt. So once you think about that, there is something that is financed throughout the Egyptian government. We used before 10 years ago to work on infrastructure projects and providing developmental projects in a lot of poor areas in Egypt through the aid and through different foreign projects. I'm sorry to tell you about this, but now we have a decent life, a decent quality of infrastructure, a decent quality of services that is now provided to the poorer areas in Egypt, with and also financed by the Egyptian government, determining the needs, determining the real needs of these in these poor areas, the coverage and how the coverage of this initiative that includes all the poor or all the different villages. You talk about maybe 4,000 villages in Egypt, and this is a very strong and huge scale and scope for whatever the project is going to cover. So the main pivots and the main idea about Decent Life is to provide development to the different rural and of course poor villages in Egypt.
Let me interrupt you here and
Yes.
say it's not just to provide development, it's for the first time to provide comprehensive development.
Yes.
National comprehensive development.
Yes, when you talk about, we don't differentiate between what's development and comprehensive development.
No, I differentiate for a simple reason, because
Why?
here when I say comprehensive development, I'm talking the nation is embarking on a comprehensive development scheme, not the aid development programs that
We
were
used to-
provided
No,
before.
no,
So
no.
these were ad hoc development programs.
Yes, you suppose as a country when you work on a development, when we say development in all of its different aspects, you suppose that you work on something that is truly financed by the Egyptian budget, and this is what is happening.
That's
what
why I'm
we
saying
had used, yes,
comprehensive development, national.
Yes, it's national, but what we had to get before, it was like what we call slices or piecemeal development.
Exactly, ad hoc.
So yes, so
that's
it
what I
was
was
not
referring to.
coordinated like what we do.
So
have
we're in
now.
agreement. Please, go ahead.
To some extent, but we used to see as an economist as development. Development.
No, there's a difference. There's a difference between
Yes.
ad hoc development programs that are not coordinated and are not comprehensive. For example, I would be a philanthropist and I would say, I'm going to develop the village that I come from in Upper Egypt, in Al-Maragha Sohag, for example.
Yes.
It's my personal initiative.
Yes.
It's not in coordination with the government, whereby there's a comprehensive
So
development program.
Yes. So what you are saying, if you'd like me to agree with you, this is what we call sustainable development. Means what? Means that you are creating a strong development, you are doing a strong linkage, and the sustainability of this. So you are doing a development on a solid ground, you are financing the project 100%.
On a huge
Egyptian,
scale.
Yes, Egyptian initiative. This is, we call it, as economists, sustainable development, and this is what should be done.
So would you agree with me when we say this is the biggest comprehensive development program within the Sustainable Development Goals?
Yes, yes, it's very comprehensive. Why it's very comprehensive? Because not of this of the goals of the SDG, it's very comprehensive because it's going to touch on the ground every and each house in a poor village or in a village in Egypt. And this didn't happen in Egypt since the 60s. Sorry to tell you about this. Yani, to have this something on the ground and going and knocking the door for the people and ask them about their needs, this is why you would like to tell it, to name it comprehensive. I will name it sustainable. Means what? You are creating choices, you are creating opportunities, you are looking for a better standard of living for them throughout by the better housing and the better services, plus creating opportunities, which is the most important thing that should be focused on later on. Try to get the people out of these poor areas. Why I consider it's one of the biggest projects also. Of course, of the infrastructure and all this amount of money that is going to be paid, which is part of it. But I consider it one of the biggest initiatives and one of the biggest achievements, because now you started to look and to concentrate with those people in these poor areas, in these poor villages. You can go to those people and to talk, have a talk with them, what they do need, what is lacking and why it's lacking, where is the leakage. This initiative and this type of attitude was not, I'm sorry to tell you,
Right.
No one had did this effort
So
before.
yes, definitely sustainable. Again, I'm using the term comprehensive because it involves, it's very important
Okay, I agree with
to
you
understand
with
the
the
terminology, because
Yes.
comprehensive means that there's a coordination between all the different players within the state, whether
Yes.
we're talking public, government, private.
Yes, yes.
Let me go back to my first question. What are the main pivots of the Decent Life Initiative?
You talk about the main building blocks?
The
You
main
mean by
pivots, the
pivots,
main
what you're saying?
characteristics.
The provision of services, which was lacking before, and determining the real needs of the population, which we should focus on. The part of coordination between different players, it already existed before in different initiatives, and this is good that had been now implemented. However, there should be some sort of strong coordination between the
Which is
different players.
present in
Yes.
this project.
Excellent.
Again, the main pivots.
Yes.
You said
in providing services,
services
which is
number
very
one.
important, and services. This is a very huge.
Providing and upgrading, or just providing? Because
No, part of it, there was part of this provision. There was also the upgrading some of the services for some roads, which is good. Providing services, you are not talking about just infrastructure, roads. No, you talk about drinking water. You talk about educational services. You talk about health services, which is very important. So the provision of these services, a lot of areas of people, and a lot of people in different places in Egypt, they were lacking this type of services. So the provision of these services means the life and having a decent life for those people who didn't used to
talking-
get a clean drinking water, for example, who didn't used to get a neat place for
And
their children
those
to be educated.
are 58% of our population.
Yes, 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 which is a lot.
Huge number.
Yes, yes. If you asked anyone who used to work in the development of Egypt, anyone who used to go to different places and different areas of Egypt, you will be shocked if we told you what we had used to see before. And this is why we don't want to see it to happen again. We want to stop these sightseeing. So this is why we are telling that the provision of certain types of services means a new lives for these people in these areas.
Why is it considered the biggest worldwide?
The biggest worldwide? The huge coverage and the huge scope of this project, and also the number of population that, if this initiative had went right till the end, if all the services and all the types or whatever is going to be provided to the population will be in the right direction. So you can imagine the huge value added that can be added to our economy and the number of people that you will transform their life. The important thing is the people themselves. When you say that it's the huge and it's one of the biggest projects, excellent, it's one of the biggest, but to us, to be one of the biggest and mega and huge projects, because of the transformation that you're going to do it for the people themselves. How we are going to transform their life from just living from a poor house with a leakage, with a lot of services, to have these decent services, to have a proper house, and also to find a proper opportunity for job. If you talk about all of these aspects, so you are transforming all of this number of this population, so you are transforming the whole of Egypt. If you would like to achieve development, true development for Egypt, you have to start from these areas, and this is what the initiative is working on.
The development effects.
A lot of development effects.
Yeah, I want to hear them from you.
A lot of
That's why
development
I'm asking
effects.
you.
First, number one, if we will imagine that the life of a family will totally change. If you talk about education or health services, so maybe the children will get a decent education. If any of the members of the family would like to get a health service, so definitely he will get a better health service, which was not the case before. The type of services, drinking water, sewage system, all of this has a relation with their standards of living. If we talk about the economic activities and the type of services that is provided now in this initiative related to, for example, providing some services to the local units to help farmers. Very small type of services will be provided to farmers, which will have a great effect on the income of these poor families. For example, the lining of the irrigation canals, this is very important because this will enhance the productivity of the agricultural land in some areas. So when you enhance the productivity of these agricultural lands, so you are creating more incomes to these families. So now you will have double effect. One effect related to the type of services that the family will be provided with, and the other will be also the type of services that is related to the enhancement of their incomes, which is very important. Should be a very important
So you
component.
have development effect and you have economic effect.
Of course, economic effect and development effect, they are interrelated. When you talk about economic progress or GDP growth, you have to think about also developing people, because
What
you cannot,
leads to GDP growth?
it's the development of people. So if you have done a true development or a comprehensive development, means definitely that you will achieve an economic growth.
So
On a wider scale.
how people are living will tell you how they are giving,
Exactly.
right?
Right. If they are living in a poor standard of living, if they are living in a suffrage, definitely they will not give you an output. And also you have to ask yourself an important, all of us to ask an important question related to the migration and living our villages. One of the truly added value of this initiative that you will decrease a lot of effect that is happening in a lot of villages. Some of the Egyptian villages, when you go to them, you will not find men. Where is the men? There is no men. They just travel to Cairo, they travel to Libya, they travel.
They're looking
The
for
women-
job
yeah, the
opportunities
women, they
somewhere
don't know
else.
where they are. So now you are going to keep them at their villages and creating opportunities at their places. And this is one of the important things when you talk about development.
So creating job opportunities within densely populated areas is crucial
Yes.
in order to have proper development effects, in order to have growth within the country. This is a problem that we used to suffer for many, many years because we live on, what, 6-7% of our territory
Yes.
for so many years, and people, like you say, migrate. For example, when you go to Sharm el-Sheikh in Sinai, you'd find a lot of people working in bazaars that come from Ina in Upper Egypt, for example. So by developing Ina and creating job opportunities there, therefore you're developing most of the country. This is one of the major objectives of the Decent Life Initiative?
Yes, of course. When you develop, how you develop whatever we want to talk about, let's go into a broader scene, which is the governorate, that includes a markaz, which is a markaz level, and then you have, yes, district, which is, we call it markaz level, and then you have the villages or mother villages, and then you have the satellite villages. So you have about 4 levels or 4 administrative levels. So you need to, if you would like to tell about development, achieving development on the governorate level, so you have to work on these 4 types of administrative levels if you'd like to achieve a true development in this governorate. And this is what makes this initiative is not an easy task for this. Why? You have to go throughout the different layers. You have to go through the different villages, see the specs of each village and
characteristics,
yes, specs, characteristics, and then what are the potentials and what should be done to develop all of these. Developing these areas is not an easy task, but once you achieve this, definitely it will be a huge transformation.
There have been many studies made on the characteristics of each governorate, and I believe I saw once a study by the Ministry of Planning.
Yes.
That stated the characteristics of every single governorate. And to my surprise, every single governorate in this country, you'd find resources that are capable of sustaining a country. There are developed countries in this world that do not have the resources. Yeah, one can say that the governorate with the less resources here in this country probably is more than in a developed country somewhere else. The management process is key in this field, right?
Yes, I will tell you something. Maybe if you go throughout different villages, you will find that there is a potential within Qina, for example, or within any of the governorate, you will see a set of villages. For each and every village, you will find a potential which is different than the other villages. So you can imagine the huge capacity and potential. We do have it here in Egypt, and it is not utilized efficiently.
Right.
And this is what we are hoping from the initiatives, like to dig down, till we reach the potential and do the linkage.
Brings me back to the comprehensive
development. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So how do you coordinate and integrate between all the different riches that are available in this country through such initiatives? Decent Life Initiative is one of them, along with the other mega projects that are present. How do you see the coordination between all the different mega projects and initiatives within the sustainable development
within the
goals?
Decent Life Initiative or within the sustainable
Decent Life Initiative is one initiative.
Yes.
You have other initiatives in this country, and you have a number of mega projects.
Yes.
How do all of those contribute to the sustainable development, the 2030 sustainable development goals?
Yes. I'll tell you something. This is the issue that we have it in Egypt along several years, that we how to do the proper linkage between a lot of investments and a lot of potentials, how to link all of this in one...
for one ultimate goal.
For one ultimate... Of course, there is an ultimate goal, which is achieving the development and economic growth for Egypt. So there is an ultimate goal.
The vision.
Yes. I will tell you something. The linkage between all of this that could be done between this mega project that we do and between what we do have in the rural areas and also the decent life is to think about the people themselves and the proper usage of the people themselves. I mean, if we are going to work on a project, for example, for any of the Egyptian ports, because we want to enhance exportation, for example. So this is one of our mega projects, roads and infrastructure for exportation. But again, why we don't think through the usage of the people there's in the decent life and the digging down, and to see what are the potentials and types of products in these rural and simple places in Egypt, and how we can enhance their product, how we can provide some sort of trainings. If we talk about projects in different ministries, to train people, to encourage entrepreneurship, and also we have a lot of work have been done on this. Why we don't bring them to go down into the people in these areas?
Okay, here you're talking about the challenges.
No, I'm talking about the linkage. I'll tell you something.
Well, the linkage is a challenge. How to link is a challenge.
To
that
link
needs to be
is by the usage of people. If you like to link between all of this mega project and all of this huge investment, is to link by using people, is to link by transferring some of the resources from the place to another.
How do you do that?
It's very easy, by asking people, going to them on the ground.
Okay, I'll take you from this to the main challenges that you see facing the achievement of the decent life objectives.
Yes, the main challenges for this. It's about creating jobs, and this is what I just had discussed with you. How the decent life, if you talk about linkage, and the linkage between the mega project and the investments and the decent life. It's about creating jobs. It's about determining the real needs in terms of job opportunities and raise awareness, and also help people to know their potentials, and then you can just get them out from whatever they are in. Not to get them out, to just migrate them to another governorate, no. To ask them to get out from what this small vision, this window, or this narrow window of life, to tell them there are other opportunities and you can move to these opportunities. So creating jobs and creating opportunities for jobs for the Egyptians at their places, and also the smart usage of the resources of the village itself, this is actually what will create the link with this mega project. Because if you had done a mega project and you just lift people, they are just living at the same quality, standard of living, and also with the same narrow window of understanding and knowledge, this is an issue. You have to get people out with you to link them with whatever you are doing. Through training, raising awareness, bringing professors from the universities, bringing professors from different places, bring intellectuals to go to people at their places and to talk with them and try to just enlighten them and increase the level of their awareness. This is what creates the linkage. It's about people 100%.
Okay, so linkage, knowing the potential. How about education?
Right?
Key.
Of course.
How do you see the coordination between those entrusted with the educational reform and initiatives such as those?
I think that we had done, you talk about the educational reform that have been done now on the different
linkage,
levels.
the synergy between the educational reform and the development programs.
Yes. General, the educational reform means the sustainability of the development programs. If you had created a mega project and unfortunately you have uneducated population, so this means that this project will not continue. I'm sorry to tell you so. But if you have a good educated population with a certain skills, if you had increased their level of education, and also plus providing health services and healthcare services, which is very important to link between the healthcare and the healthcare services and the good and decent provision of healthcare services and educational services. So by linking those, you will have a decent Egyptian person who definitely will talk about a sustainable development. So of course education is very important key, and we see on the ground a lot of reforms for the education that we hope that it will achieve its goals at the end, but we still have a lot in terms of educational reform in Egypt. And this is very normal, and we still have a lot for the health also reform.
But there is a lot of coordination going on. Today we've seen the cabinet meeting and coordinating on the Decent Life initiative between the different ministries that are available, which is a main point to take into consideration when looking at the progress being made so far and the comprehensive approach that is undertaken. With that in mind, the public sector and the government, where does the private sector fit in?
There should be a big role for the private sector, and there is a big role for the private sector to fit in this development. Throughout the different layers of the Decent Life, there should be a place for the private sector, which is actually happening now. For a part of the infrastructure work, for all of the decent work, it's all have been awarded to private sector companies. So this means a lot, because by awarding the work to the Egyptian private sector to work on this project, this means that you are creating a lot of projects on the ground, and all of these projects will also create another chances for other projects. So you are creating a huge value added and a huge accumulation effect on the ground. So when you have the private sector as one of the main partners on the ground, this means that you are creating a hell of opportunities and a hell of jobs also at the same time. Whatever the types of services, if you talk about health, education, infrastructure in terms of roads, paving roads, lining canals, sewage or drinking water. Even you can use the youth themselves to do some sort of software training and raising awareness. So this is from this point where the linkage is coming.
And in such initiatives, there are great opportunities, especially after the project is done. You need jobs to be created, as you have referred a while back, and the private sector is the main employer in the country. Do you see there are enough facilities, incentives offered to the private sector to further engage within development projects?
Yes, I see it actually. On a personal level, I see, yes, and I see also there is a lot of support from the government to the private sector and for the small and medium enterprises and for the newly established projects and for the entrepreneurs to work on the ground. I see now it's it's a window of opportunity for whoever would like to start a business in Egypt, because the level of support that is going to have, this is the first time I see it along my studies for economics, for the Egyptian community and for the Egyptian government. So yes, there is a support, and there's a hell of support, a lot of changes of laws and regulations to support the private sector in different sectors of the economy. So yes, there is a lot of support to them, and they have to work and to start work.
And the more work for the Egyptian private sector, the more attractive this country will become for foreign investments, thereby more growth, if you will. On that note, Dr. Zainab Nawar, Professor of Economics, British University in Egypt, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us here on the Business Insider. I'm Ayman Salah. Good night.